Now, let's take a look at... here's one. Christian democracy. This one's an interesting case. I'm gonna put it above agrarianism. Just fascists thinking we don't like education. Oh, it's making everyone stupid. That must mean their race and their genetics. Yeah, that's true. Fascists do frequently attribute everything to, like, your genetics and fucking... I don't know, your phrenology or some shit. Look, I am a firm believer that evil will reflect on somebody's face. Like, malice reflects on somebody's face. A fucking negative aura or some shit. But yeah, fascists get so, like, fascists are like, your skin tone is actually 3 shades too dark, which means your IQ is 69 points lower. Like Palpatine, yes. I kind of like that, actually. You know? Yeah, I don't know how to describe that impulse in the fascists, other than they're, like, really insecure, desperate to justify themselves, but they don't want to do any actual work. And they know that everybody else is mostly better than them anyway, so they have to say, you're actually part of the inferior race. And then they're like, yeah, that'll show them. Meanwhile, they're still, like, abject losers. Anyways. Christian democracy. This one goes in the bad tier, because it's just social democracy, but worse. It's kind of the best attempt. It's kind of like the best attempt to, from the right, to have a coherent answer to social democracy. Remember when I said that neoconservatives will sometimes prop up social institutions, will sometimes fund the experiments of social democracy in service of the national interest, in service of ensuring that the nation is stable. Christian Democrats are in a similar kind of boat, or at least they were until the liberal backslide really started, in which case I would probably put them right, you know, next to neoliberalism. But in the time where this ideology was relevant, I think, you know, where it was still a distinguishable ideology, I think it's better than these. Because these fundamentally are ideologies of stagnation, and this was simply the right wing trying to keep up with what was at the time a rapidly advancing social democratic state. A lot of Christian democratic policymaking revolves around the family unit and the sort of Christian conservative values. It comes with a lot of problems. For example, it is a really consistent enforcement mechanism by the state of, like, heteronormativity. You will never find a, you know, you will seldom find, I should say, a Christian Democrat advocating that these family benefits be accessible to queer couples with adopted children, you know, because a lot of times they might not view them as real families. But they are not like the fascists and anarcho-capitalists and objectivists that either advocate solely for the use of the state as a method of control, or basically a deity that you must sacrifice yourself to, nor would they advocate for abolishing it entirely. They are capable of acknowledging that the state is capable of providing public services, you know? That's probably why they disappeared too, because the right wing, being the reactionary political wing, they could not sustain a movement that stepped on the toes of capital in any meaningful way. The more public services you have, the more government services you have to stabilize society and ensure a strong social unit, the less room there is for market forces to profiteer and inshitify everything, you know? The more you make things better, the harder it is to make things worse for profit. So Christian democracy went the way of the dinosaur pretty quick, and social democracy followed a few decades after. You know? Social democracies everywhere. There are still remnants of them. You can see the structures of what used to be, but social democracies the world round are pretty roundly in decay. You know? In a way, I think it's interesting. We should have seen this as, like, kind of a warning sign. The disappearance of Christian democracy as a governing philosophy of providing services, but oriented towards a family unit, towards more conservative values, the disappearance of that from the political discourse should have been an early warning sign that more backslide was to come, you know? Because it's always the conservatives that fold first if they have any meaningful opposition to offer. If they have any meaningful, like, good policy to offer, they're always the ones to fold first, because conservatism as a set of ideologies exists to serve hierarchy, you know? And there's nothing that the hierarchs hate more than a stabilizing force if it helps, you know, the lower classes. They're like, oh shoot, we're not helping the rich. Yeah, that's exactly it. The reason you don't really see Christian democracy anymore, as distinguishable from neoliberalism or neoconservatism or whatever, is because they would have to do things that don't explicitly and only help the rich at the expense of, like, the poor and everybody else. Hello, Editing Y2K here. This is just one part of a multi-part series of me ranking all the ideologies that I know enough about to comment on. It took place over the course of 2 live streams earlier in the year, and the other parts will be all available on a playlist if you're interested. Please check it out, and thank you for watching.